Hey everybody, William Wallace for America here. And as you know, I've been hanging out at the Capitol a whole lot lately to interview elected officials, because I think the best way to get to know our elected officials is put them on camera, do a little interview with them, and do it in such a way that people can get to know them, know their districts, and during the interview, you'll always find out ways that not only you can be involved and more about our legislators, more about Louisiana. And in the meantime, if you keep an eye on the background, that's the House chamber with the voting board in the back. You never know who you're going to see or what's going on. Today, I'm with Beau Beaullieu, who's a House representative here for our state, District 48. And I'm going to let him talk about his area and some of the things that he's got. Beau?
Yep.
Thank you very much for being on there, man. I appreciate it.
William, thank you for coming to the Capitol. You've been here for the duration, yeah. And so congratulations on being involved, and thank you for reaching out to the rest of the state and the rest of the country just on spreading the word and what we're doing here at the Capitol.
I appreciate that, because I think it's one of the best ways that we can get people involved is when they're aware of what's going on and who's involved. You know, they tend to be more involved, and you know, we need more people doing that.
Yep.
You know, for us, I appreciate that. This is my way to give back to the community at the same time.
Thank you for doing such.
Well, you're District 48. Correct. On a geographical area, can you kind of describe to people where District 48 is?
Yeah, so District 48 is, 65% of it is Iberia Parish, the eastern and northeastern side of Iberia Parish, and we have a thin sliver that connects us to Lafayette Parish. We have the Youngsville and Broussard, a big chunk of Youngsville and Broussard along the Highway 90 corridor between Iberia and Lafayette Parish. And then we have a tiny sliver, about 3% makes up St. Martin Parish. So it wraps around the city of New Iberia, takes in part of Lafayette Parish and touches St. Martin. So it's a very diverse area, very geographically extended area, but great people in District 48 and Iberia, Lafayette, St. Martin Parish, and I'm just real fortunate and humbled that they have chosen me to serve here at the Capitol on their behalf.
I love that whole area out there. It's a neat little area. I've talked to a lot of reps that all kind of share that Lafayette area, it seems, there. But what do you think, what makes up that district? What kind of industry is big on that area?
Yeah, so oil and gas is a primary driver of our industry. And as you know, it's being beaten down at the time. But oil and gas has been the breadwinner for many, many years. The sugar industry is also a very
yeah, people forget about that.
That's right. No, and it's been here for many generations, and so we're dependent on our sugar growers and producers, and we're fortunate to have both the sugar industry and oil and gas that have supported us throughout the years, and you know that's what I'm here to do for them.
Yeah, exactly.
is to return the favor on what they've done for our area, and hopefully pass some legislation that makes it easier for them to grow and harvest and produce cane and to drill for oil and gas in our state.
You know, you're tapping into something. I interviewed Mike Strain, our agriculture commissioner, a while back on the show, and he talked about all the different crops and products that Louisiana has to offer. And it's interesting, as I talk to the different legislators, to find out what is prominent in their areas, and there's a whole bunch of different things in different geographic areas.
So to give you an idea, you know, my grandfather, my father, my uncles, my brother, everyone's in oil and gas.
Okay.
I grew up in a sugarcane field, so it hits home. I have very close friends, very tight with both industries, and so a lot of personal relationships there throughout the years, and both of them are very near and dear to my heart.
You tapped into my next question there. What's your background actually?
So my background, I'm a numbers guy.
Yeah.
I have a degree in finance and MBA.
Well, that's the first. Yeah. You're the first one I've talked about.
So a bit, I tell everybody, they say, we want government to run like a business. And so I was telling them during the campaign, I said, we'll send a business guy there to handle business.
Business with a background in finance.
Right. But so we handle corporate retirement plans, 401k plans. And our clients go from New Orleans all the way to Houston, even up into Oklahoma. So we are out meeting with business owners, and they're getting them to use our services, and then educating their employees on what it's like to save, what it's like to budget, what it's like to invest their dollars and to save for tomorrow. Again, a lot of the same principles that we're trying to bring here to the Capitol, we do on a day-to-day basis with our company.
And you're somebody doing that on a personal level here as a representative. Right. The more legislators I talk to in the body here, everybody has these unique, different kinds of backgrounds and different kind of, so everybody has a different perspective.
that's something that I didn't realize or I didn't fully appreciate coming into the legislature.
Right.
But if there's something on logging, I know who to go to. If there's some legal issues, I know who to go to. If there's a telecommunications or rural broadband, we have experts in the legislature because they're in all the different industries, and so it's for me as a new legislature, it's very important to be able to have those resources and those colleagues that you can trust their judgment and lean on to educate you on the different items in the state.
And broadband is one of those big things that went through the state house this year. It looks like we're going to have that statewide.
Yep. And you know, people think of broadband a lot of times in your most rural part of the state, where you might not have a big city around, but even in Iberia Parish and St. Martin Parish and parts of Lafayette Parish, you have places that have very little access to broadband. And so if you wanted to move a business into those areas, it's difficult if they can't get internet services for just the simple needs of running their business. And so broadband and getting those capabilities throughout the state is going to continue to be a top priority for the entire state.
You keyed into something that makes me think, sometimes when you drive through the rural areas of Louisiana, you see a lot of abandoned buildings and a lot of abandoned businesses. Something like this bill that you guys successfully got through here this session and did a lot of good work on is something that could bring some of those businesses back, or maybe put new businesses in those places.
No, that's absolutely right. And there's a lot of discussions about people moving back out into what we call it out in the country.
Yeah.
They want to be. They're moving back to these rural areas, but we need to be able to give them the basic services that you can get in other places in the state if we want to attract them to these areas.
What do you think was the number one issue in your district, or pressing your district, and is that something that might be Louisiana also, or is there two different answers there?
No, I think it's for all of Louisiana, and it was pressing throughout our drive, and we talked about it on the campaign trail. I've talked about it in committees, but it's on creating jobs in our state, and we need to. My whole thing is to create policies that allow businesses to thrive in our state. For so many years, we've created policies that have hampered business development and hampered what they've been able to do. And I think we loosen those strings and allow businesses to grow and give them tools to prosper. And I think you create jobs, it creates revenue on the local municipalities, it creates revenue for the state. Without the jobs, you have fewer people here, fewer people carrying a bigger burden, a bigger load.
Exactly.
And so we need to create a state where people can find gainful employment, where my kids can feel comfortable. I have a daughter who's hopefully graduating college next year, and the job market right now is tough.
It's slim.
And so I hope we can create some policies that make it a better place to do business.
Between oil and gas and the whole COVID-19 thing, it's really kind of, those things are really taking the wind out of our sails on that. Is there any legislation that you worked on this session that you'd like to talk about and let people know about?
Yeah, there's two big pieces of legislation that I carried and we're successful. The first one is what we call the ITEP Ready Parish Bill, where you're taking the industrial tax exemption program, and municipalities can choose whether they want to be ITEP ready. So what happens is at the beginning of the year in their different government entities, they vote and say, okay, if the State Board of Commerce approves these projects, and they meet all the standards for creating jobs and for the investment that they're going to do in our community. We want to fly the flag and let people know that we're not going to bring you through the ringer and take you through all the red tape in our locality. You're going to automatically become ITEP ready. And so we wanted to give these parishes that want to be aggressive and doing economic development, we wanted to give them another tool to bring businesses in. And I mean, if you think about it, if I'm a business from out of state looking to relocate here, and I hear the horrid stories about Louisiana politics, and I think that I'm gonna have to go before a school board, go through a parish council. I'm gonna be nervous about whether or not I even want to come invest in Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is another tool for those parishes to be able to do some economic development.
So ITEP is the name of the legislation. One of the things. So look that up. And again, like I always encourage people there, you can always replay this video and check into that, because the ITEP thing sounds really interesting, and maybe I'll research that some more. You named two pieces of legislation.
The other one is an expenditure limit bill. So and I know that's a complicated word, but the state is limited by law on how much it can spend based on what the expenditure limit is, or how much they can budget.
Yeah.
our current expenditure limit is basically it's not a it's a real number, but it's a very overinflated number. If it hadn't been adjusted throughout the years, the state could actually spend through general fund dollars another $5 billion. It's over the years, by legislation, they reduce it. And so what we're doing is we have a constitutional amendment on the ballot this fall that's very important, and we need all the voters to get out there and support it. But we're changing the formula of the expenditure limit to make it a more reasonable formula based on economic factors like job growth, in migration, out migration, GDP numbers, inflationary factors, not just personal income growth, which is what the current formula is. But the other thing is every year it has a reset factor in it, to where based on what the state spends this year, it's based on this year's appropriation, not a compounding number that continues to grow regardless of what the state does. It's a whole different way of looking at the budget process, and I encourage the citizens in Louisiana, if you're concerned about government growth and the rapid increases in government growth, you want to support this legislation.
So this sounds like a way, in like a layman's term, as a way to regulate how much the government can spend based on factors that are going on within our state, that determine tax dollars coming in or determine jobs and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a way to...
I get into the weeds a little bit. You did a better job of being simple with it.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I watch this stuff, and people read it. If you read the legislation, people kind of, they get kind of blurry-eyed. Sometimes I try to find ways that, it's almost like an algorithm, that the budget automatically picks up on, but you all have these stopgap measures in place. That sounds very innovative.
It is. It's a different way of thinking of it. And with the class of 40-something freshmen, you have some new ideas out there. And I was happy to see we got bipartisan support on the expenditure limit bill. I think both sides agree that this is a good way to govern our state.
Well, yeah, because it helps both not only people in upper income brackets, but also in lower income brackets. Because their taxes or the government spending is kind of based on what they're doing.
That's right. And
I like that.
And if for some reason let's say we have more revenue that comes in than what was appropriated, well, that goes to surplus. If we have surplus, we can tackle these big infrastructure projects all over the state. We can pay it into the rainy day fund, and we can pay down the state debt. That's what happens with surplus dollars. So for me, this is a great way to tackle the needs of Louisiana and fix some roads in our state.
It sounds very innovative, like the kind of thinking that we kind of need now in the state. Because for too long our budget has been decided on one agriculture or one different type of product, and this kind of does that. One last question for you, because I know the session's about to start, guys. Is what can people in Louisiana do to become more involved in the process? What would be something that you would like motivate people to do?
Yeah, so contact your legislators. Come here when you can. I know we got a COVID crisis going on now, but I encourage everybody to contact your legislators. I get all the emails. So if you're in my district, I do my best to try and reply to them. I'll try and return phone calls. I know not everybody's schedule allows them to do that, but I try and do that. And we listen to our constituents. We are there serving the people back home. So if there's an issue out there and you're passionate about it, we need to know that, because we're running through a lot of bills on a day-to-day basis. And if something is important to you, you need to let us know, because that makes it important to us.
Well, to your point, I'll explain. You can go online, and not only when they have bills that are in committee, you can see the things that are in committee. You can see the actual bills that they're working on before they get voted on. So at that point you can read about them. You can click on, read the descriptions, and see whose legislation it is. Contact that state rep if you like. Contact your own state rep if it's a different state rep, and be able to comment on things before it even gets to the Senate or vice versa, and then also vote when it comes back with amendments. So we can really get into the weeds of the process.
But especially if you're a subject matter expert on something, and you think a piece of legislation is missing something, you definitely want to be able to contact that author and offer some other information. Because if you ever watch it on the videos, day to day, or on the archives, the committee meetings is where all the magic happens. And so, or where the sausage is made. However you want to look at it. But I mean, so the committee meetings are a very important process.
So That's how easy it is to get involved, everybody. And one of the other ways that you can be involved is to share this video. Beau's, I'm going to put it on Beau's Facebook page and put it on my Facebook page. It's also going to be on my YouTube channel at William Wallace for America. Last name is Wallis. Also a podcast. So if you listen to podcasts, I have a friend who does, you can also look up the podcast at William Wallace for America on any podcast player. And until we have our next video, I want to thank Beau. Thank you very much for coming on,
William,
Beau.
thank you. No,
appreciate the time.
Hopefully by the time we visit next time, this tort reform bill is off of the floor and we've done something.
Oh yeah, there's some things coming up today on that.
If we're going to have an action-packed day today. So
it's going to be fun.
It will be.
All right, everybody, tune in. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you all.